Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
Good Friday morning. It is O'Connor and Company. You're listening to News Talk 105.9, WMAL 707, and it's Patrice Onwuka here with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning, Patrice.
All right, well, please, folks, you know Larry, our good friend, the host of this show, he's going through a rough time with his family, so please keep him in your thoughts and prayers. But in the meantime, Julie and I are here. We're manning the fort, and we're going to be welcoming our first guest of the morning. But let me give you a quick rundown. At 8:05, Susan Ferriccio, National Politics correspondent for the Washington Times, will give us the beat on Congress. And at 8:35, Susan Crabtree from Real Clear Politics, national political correspondent, will give us an update on a new Trump report about the assassination attempt against him. All right, well, first, we're excited to have Christian Datoc, White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner, here with us. Good morning, Christian.
Good morning, y'all. Thanks for having me on, as always. And I know everyone, both on the show right now and listening, is thinking about Larry and his family, so we're keeping them in our prayers.
Appreciate that so much. Well, yesterday, this week has been so full of White House news. Let's start with Thursday and work our way back to Monday, perhaps. You want to give us a rundown on some of the things that have happened? We know that President Trump has extended or delayed the tariffs for a few weeks that were going into effect against Mexico and Canada, and then lots of DOJ news in terms of, meeting with the secretaries yesterday and talking about how, he's kind of turning the power back over to the secretaries when it comes to layoffs and handling their staff. So would love to get your read on some of these big key issues right now from the White House perspective.
Sure. Well, let's start with the tariffs, because I think that's probably the storyline that has the most reverberations across the country. And you nailed it. President Trump announced that all USMCA compliant goods, that's of course the trade deal he negotiated to replace NAFTA back in 2019 along with Canada and Mexico. So that's a major development, and it comes after significant pressure not just from Canada and Mexico, but a lot of U.S. Manufacturers and other industries here in the States. We know the president met with representatives from the big three automakers on Wednesday, and then fast forward one day and we had this announcement. Now, it is temporary. It is slated to expire, the exemption, on April 2nd, when the remainder of President Trump's reciprocal tariff agenda goes into place. But I think what's important here are the actual numbers. Only around 38% of all goods coming in from Canada are in compliance with UMCA. So 62% will still be subject to tariffs, whether it's the full 25% or the carve-out 10% for energy imports. And then on the other side of the border, 50% of Mexican imports are also not compliant. So it does seem like the Trump administration is reacting a little bit to the market volatility we've seen this week after implementation on Tuesday. But look, Peter Navarro spoke to us before the president took this executive action, and he said this is purely about combating the flow of fentanyl. We've seen, good faith efforts from our allies involved in this dispute. That being said, we still need to see more progress. So they're leaving the door open for the dropping of the tariffs entirely before April 2nd. But as it is right now, they still just want to see more from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in his final days in office and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum on the issue. You mentioned Elon Musk, and he actually had a much worse week than Donald Trump did. And he was at a cabinet meeting on Thursday where the president essentially, with Musk's blessing, so to speak, told all the cabinet secretaries, look, Elon and DOJ, they do not have hiring or firing authority. That still lies with the department head. So it comes after a number of errors that DOJ posted to its Wall of Receipts website and some accidental firings and rehirings of critical federal employees, whether they are the Ebola planning teams at USAID. Obviously, there's that terrible outbreak in Africa that the U.S. is assisting with, or any number of positions across the federal government. So it doesn't look like Musk is on his way out the door, otherwise he wouldn't have been in that cabinet meeting, but it certainly is sort of pumping the brakes a little bit on the 120 miles per hour speed with which they're trying to address federal waste and abuse.
I want to turn now, Christian. There's so much. I honestly have like 14 follow-up questions on that, but there's so much to talk about. And I want to get to this reported report on the assassination attempt on Trump. Trump actually said that he will be receiving a report, I think, next week. What do you know about this report?
Well, what I know is essentially what the president told us yesterday. I mean, this was news. Of course, obviously, we knew that the report was being carried out by DOJ, by the FBI. But just to hear the president address it in this way was a little shocking yesterday. I don't think anyone expected it to be made public. Obviously, there will be redacted portions so quickly. But I think if you look back to the assassination attempt in July, it appears to have a truly profound effect on Donald Trump's view of not only himself, but really the world. And I think he's trying to share that with America. We've heard a lot from Donald Trump that sounds like his first administration, obviously the tariff war. But when you sort of take the policy out of it, his tenor, his tone is very different in a lot of these different speeches. He's talking a lot about trying to be a unifier. Of course, he, can't help himself from criticizing President Biden during that speech before Congress on Tuesday, but that was much more of a campaign stump speech rather than some of the more intimate settings we've seen him in, where he sounds like a changed man, to be honest. And there's a lot of time left in his term. He's going to have a lot of opportunities to prove that he really wants to bring the country together. But it's certainly probably the not the strangest, but perhaps the most shocking development compared to his first term in office.
Real quick follow-up on that, and I know Patrice has another question, but really quickly, there is some concerns that really is the Secret Service being cleaned out of people who really allowed Butler to happen. I think there were some concerns about that. Did Trump address that? I think he may have said something about that, because I think people are sort of wondering, we've seen this hatchet job on other agencies. Seems to me that it's really important to clean up the Secret Service.
Well, the president is taking steps to do this, but again, that ultimately is going to fall on DHS to make those decisions. Again, Secretary Kristi Noem has the hiring and the firing power within her own agency, of which still U.S. Secret Service is nested under. And of course, we saw Kimberly Cheadle, get tossed from the office before President Trump came into office. Now, Sean Grant, President Trump's own former head of detail, is leading that office. Those men certainly developed a close relationship over the last 4 years, and I look to see some more reforms coming down the pipe. But as it stands right now, recruitment is up, which is a critical leg in trying to reform Secret Service and make sure that there are no more, potential threats that slip through the cracks like they did last summer with Butler. So I'm almost 100% positive that President Trump will give us some new updates next week when he releases at least a portion of that report. But as it stands right now, I think those concerns are valid because it's almost impossible to prepare for an event like it was in Butler until it's staring you in the face. And I think everyone across the country can say we don't need another terrible tragedy like that to spur more change.
Exactly. We're speaking with Christian Datoc, White House correspondent with the Washington Examiner. Christian, we have a laundry list more of questions. Can we hold you over and take a quick break?
Yeah, no problem, y'all.
WMAL, making sense of the news.
We're continuing our discussion here, update really, reporter's notebook update with Christian Datoc, White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Christian, we've got so many more questions to ask. So many things happen, but I wanted just to pick up quickly on a thread you mentioned, which is President Trump's tone and tenor. We have not seen him do a lot of name calling. A lot of the things that turned off some voters and some even conservatives made them clutch their pearls. We don't hear that coming from him. I would just love your read on his joint address to Congress, his address to the joint session of Congress earlier this week.
Well, that joint address was really sort of the most name calling or finger pointing we've seen from President Trump in office. And to be quite honest, watching the first half of the speech, I was a little disappointed that we didn't get more substantive policy announcements. But when you take a step back and you look at the speech in its entirety, it's pretty clear that Donald Trump remains a master of optics and a master of messaging, even if perhaps he doesn't have the most robust vocabulary, because we all knew Democrats wanted to mount some type of opposition. Obviously, Congressman Al Green was tossed from the chamber and eventually censured for his protests of President Trump. But the Democrats who, declined to stand and applaud for any of the, various topics that he touched on really sort of bit them in the behind when he started talking about Jocelyn Mungary, the 12-year-old girl who was murdered by 2 illegal immigrants last summer in Texas, or DJ Daniel, a 13-year-old brain cancer patient who the president made an honorary member of Secret Service. And then you fast forward again to Thursday, and the big storyline from that speech was Republicans dunking on Democrats for being heartless or dishonorable, whatever you want to call it, for refusing to stand for those really nonpartisan moments where we're celebrating tragedy among American families and just really extraordinary stories of resilience. So Donald Trump played them like a fiddle, let's be honest. And if you had any questions going into the first half of the speech, the second half reminded you he still got that juice.
Christian, I'm so glad you brought that up. I feel like there are, I've been in Washington for a long time, not going to say how long, it's been a long time. And I've watched a lot of these speeches, and there are things that you just do. You stand when the president comes into the chamber, you stand when the first lady gets to her seat, and you stand during these generally sort of agreed upon happy moments. Like, my goodness, there was one of the Israeli hostages. There were so many wonderful stories. Those guests, had such wonderful stories, and they couldn't stand for them. It was really sort of bizarre. And I saw on Twitter some chatter about how normal people are disgusted by this partisan display. Midterms are coming. Do you think this is something that the Republicans will play? I certainly hope they do. But do you think Americans will remember how the Democrats, and then also, the sort of Jasmine Crockett stuff and the Al Green stuff? It just, do you think voters will remember this?
The midterms are just around the corner for us here in D.C., but I'm going to be quite honest with you. I don't think the majority of the country are paying attention to that yet. And for that reason, I don't necessarily expect what happened on Tuesday night to be featured that heavily in ads. Obviously, if there's a race where one person in particular is being featured, then maybe that clip will be played. Because, there's plenty of time for Republicans to build up their stockpile of attack ads. But I think the more important question here is what are Democrats really doing? Because through the first month and a half of President Trump's term in office, the first 7 weeks or so, it's pretty clear the Democratic Party does not have a North Star. There's no one who they can really look to and take notes from. Obviously, Nancy Pelosi is out of leadership now, even though she might be pulling the strings from behind the scenes. And I think that lack of a leader has resulted in the party not necessarily being able to find an effective strategy to coalesce behind and effectively, oppose President Trump's agenda. What we're really seeing is the same playbook we've seen rolled out from 2015 on, more or less. And let's be honest, it just doesn't work. I mean, you can say what you want about Donald Trump, about how he doesn't act presidential, he doesn't have the gravitas of a career statesman, but that doesn't seem to matter to American voters. And I think a large part in that is because Democrats themselves haven't changed their own positive messaging across that same time frame. So the DNC, the party as a whole, needs to take a look in the mirror and find a real strategy shift. Otherwise, it's just going to be, Vice President J.D. Vance getting sworn in on January 20th, 2028, and there's nothing really they can do about it right now.
Wow. Well, from your lips to God's ears, Christian Datoc. Follow him on X at TOC Radio, Talk Radio. Christian, thank you for reading your reporter's notebook with us this morning.
No problem, y'all. Have a great weekend.
All right, you too. It's 7:22.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:37. I just wanted to hit that top note and then come in.
Like, where are you going? Where are you going with this?
At 7:37 News Talk 105.9 WMAL. It is O'Connor and Company. It is a Friday. It's me, Patrice Onwuka, here with Julie Gunlock. We're keeping Larry in our hearts and our prayers right now. Please do the same. And we're rolling through this Friday. At 8:05, we've got Susan Ferriccio, national politics correspondent at the Washington Times. Lots of things happened in Congress. We'll catch up with her on that. And at 8:35, the other Susan Crabtree from Real Clear Politics. She's going to give us the download on a new Trump report about his assassination attempt. All right, Julie, this is the moment we've been waiting for. I know. Listen, this is actually great because I love the royal family. As a former British subject, I'm from the Caribbean, a British colony. I love royal news. And the whole Meghan Markle thing has given me so much heartburn. And unfortunately, she's back. We can't get rid of her like a bad rash.
She's
a bad rash.
Oh, rash is much better.
She's an itch. You keep scratching and it just doesn't go anywhere. And it spreads. She is spread to streaming platforms. She now has a new show, Julie. We know you've got the full rundown. Let's see. Where do we start? Maybe we should listen to a clip and get your response, okay? And gag a little bit. Don't, folks, if you throw up in your mouth, sorry in advance. Michael, let's play cut 21.
I know some people just do this entirely by themselves at home. We've been doing this for over a year now, but I still need you. I can't do this part. It makes me so scared.
Oh, don't be scared.
I remember when we started, we didn't have it. With our bees here, we've had it, and to watch us grow. Why are you whispering? So long is incredible. Oh, they're busy. Busy bees. Talk about good vibes.
We're about to immerse ourselves in like 70,000 good vibes.
Good vibes for good hives.
What is this?
This honestly, this was worse than I thought. Hold on. I want to tweet this out too because I want people to see my thread on. I did a thread and I watched it. I actually suffered for you all and watched. I just watched the first episode. I watched the first episode.
Where does it take place? First off, is it in her house?
Now, see, okay, let's remember Meghan Markle. They left England. They come to the United because they wanted a private life. Okay.
Yes.
And then she opens up her private life to the public, right? And I mean, Harry's there. There's like you can see the kids in the back of their heads, but you know.
Okay.
And again, I only watched 1.5 episodes. Absolute torture. But I do this for our listeners. And it apparently is not her house. It's a set.
Oh, okay.
It's basically this little cottage. It's not tiny. It's bigger than my house, but it's basically just a kitchen. And it has big gardens. And the thing that's so nauseating is she always talks about her gardens. Let's go out to my gardens. And I've always been gardening and I love gardening. And she pretends that this is her garden, but in fact, it is a set. So her first friend, it's really interesting. Her first friend is her hairdresser. In other words, he's on the payroll.
That's the biggest person she could get. Gavin Newsom rolls out Charlie Kirk for his podcast.
Right. Yeah, you're totally right. And the next episode, the second episode, was Mindy Keeling, who's, she's kind of A-list, I'd say. She's a big star.
No,
fine.
like D-list.
Fine. Anyway, but that's a little bit better than this, like, anonymous hairdresser who could not be more slobbering. I mean, this is the thing that you get right away is that Meghan is complimented constantly. Both Mindy Keeling and this hairdresser, so-called friend of hers, constantly compliment her. So that's very clear that you have to be friends with Meghan. You have to constantly compliment her. The cooking itself, but you could say, okay, maybe it's a little cringe and maybe it's a little
maybe there's a lifestyle element to it, right?
And maybe there's some great cooking. The cooking could not be more basic. Okay, she makes this pasta, which is like a starchy, vegetable-y mess. Okay, sort of soggy. He puts zest in that. He puts lemon zest in that pasta, and I swear there's like a cup of zest in this pasta. So to people who cook and like love to cook and love food, nothing was interesting. It had all been done before. Martha's done this. Gwyneth's done this. The Food Network has done this. Oprah has done this. It literally was like bad leftovers, warmed up bad leftovers. There was nothing original. I mean, aesthetically, yes, it was pretty. It looked nice, but there were a couple items, like she put together a gift pack for someone. This is kind of getting a lot of coverage. She takes one plastic bag and then opens the plastic bag of these pretzels and then transfers it to another plastic bag that's prettier. And then, it's going to her friend and she labels it peanut allergy. You would know it's not going to like a bake sale, a school bake sale. It's for her friend. You would know if her friend Daniel, the hairdresser, the paid friend, is allergic to nuts. So the whole thing it just came off as false. She seems a little odd and uncomfortable. And everybody, and again, I only watched 2 episodes. The need to constantly compliment her
that's how you get on her show.
That's right.
I mean, so we've got this cut. Let's play cut 22 because she's talking about truffle popcorn. If this show is about her relating to regular people, I'm not sure truffle popcorn is the way to do it.
This was very fun to do with kids. Or not, because I just had quite a bit of fun. For Daniel, why don't we do some truffle popcorn? Truffle.
Truffle. First of all, truffle. No kid likes truffles. Okay, first of all, truffle also. Hi, the '90s called. They want their kitchen item back. I mean, truffle popcorn. What?
Aren't truffles really hard to come by and pretty expensive?
Well, this is an extraction. This is an extraction, and you can buy very cheap.
Okay.
Frankly, you can buy very cheap truffle oil that smells not so good. And I can't imagine a kid really liking this. But again, the idea of truffle popcorn, it was like, Charlie Trotter in the 1990s who served truffle popcorn. This is not a new concept, okay?
Yeah.
And again, it's sort of reaching for this. Oh my gosh. And she can't just pop regular popcorn. She's got a cob.
Is it a popper?
No, it's a cob. It's literally a cob.
A cob of corn?
It's a cob of dried
Can you get more out of
that
touch? Like what? Listen, are we on a reservation? Like cutting down a stalk of corn from the husk? I hope that wasn't an insensitive comment, but I mean, like, who is popping corn from a husk?
You go to every knockoff Amish gift center, and they have some sort of like, you can make popcorn out of the. I mean, again, nothing original, nothing new, and no glimpse of her life. The reason people are tuning in is to see her actual life, to see her be authentic, to see how she lives, how Harry lives. Look, these are royal watchers. People want to see this stuff. And then it's on a set, it's with her hairdresser. Again, the whole thing was just silly.
And whenever I have someone come and stay, one of my favorite things to do is to prep the guest room. I think about the 2 places of a guest experience once they've gone into their room. What's at the side of the bed for them? That's their good morning and good night moment. And what is in the bathroom for them so they can have a beautiful soak, a nice bath.
So laying in the stew of their own dirtiness. I mean, this is unrelatable. Am I wrong?
Okay, that is hilarious. And now I know the rules when I stay at Teresa's house. No baths and no number 2. Got it. I will say, the funniest thing is this bath salt recipe that she put up is getting criticized because apparently she used way too much essential oils. And you're not supposed to use that ratio. So I love the fact that she's probably going to get someone killed soaking in the tub with the wrong concoction of things. But I just do think that the whole point of this is to make her relatable. And nothing about this is relatable. Nothing about this makes her relatable. Nobody has time to make bath salts for guests. I mean, look, when people come over, you might put together a small sort of welcome basket, like towels and other things. And again, I think it's all lovely, but it really speaks to her privilege, and it speaks to, really her ungratefulness for sort of this life that she's entered. I don't think that this is going to help her reputation in the States. I suspect this will have 1 season and 1 season only. And then she'll go on to other things. She's definitely trying desperately to be the next Martha Stewart, the next Ina Garten,
you could tell.
The next Goop,
Jonah, what's her name from the house show with her husband?
Oh, I can't remember.
Yes, thank you, Jonah Gaines. Joanna Gaines, yes.
Absolutely. And again, you get the sense, I've watched this before. Where have I seen this before? Where? Oh, that's right. 2 decades of women who have sort of entered this area.
Yes.
I've already named them off. And so we're not getting anything original. And to top it off, her delivery is very cringe. So again, I think we're looking at a 1-season show here.
Meghan Markle missed a huge opportunity. I mean, she could have gone back to Let's Make a Deal. The Deal show where she was a carrier of one of the cases, Deal or No Deal. Thank you, Michael. She could have gone back on the reboot, but she missed that opportunity. But seriously, she missed an opportunity, I think, if she really had political aspirations to use all of the money that Netflix and all of these other streaming services were throwing at her feet to really say, how can I leverage my position as a runaway member of the royal family to bring America to England or England to America. I mean, I think your earlier point was people want the insight. They want to see what the life is like for someone. That is why we watch Housewives of fill in the blank, Potomac, for example, because we want to see a life that's not our own. And I think she missed that opportunity. You don't need truffle popcorn. You don't need zest in a ton of lemon zest in your food. I think she meets interesting people. She has those connections. I think there could have been a smarter way to position her as a smart person, but she kind of diminished her own self by limiting her, trying to be like a redux of Martha or Joanna or all these people who have done it and done it better. Yes. And that's the thing. She's not doing it better. So, I mean, that's our take on Meghan Markle. I doubt she's going to listen to us, but thankfully the listeners of WMAL are listening, and it is 7:53.